Hi, today we are going to make pralined almonds. These are very similar to those that you get like at the baseball games, like in the Nut Buddies. They come in those paper cones. Very, very similar to those. We are using almonds. You could use peanuts, any other nut as well, but we really like the almonds. Now on your recipe, it states that you need to cut the recipe by 1/3, and we have you do that to work on your math skills. So for this, we need to combine the sugar and the water in a saucepan. So once we've cut the recipe by 1/3, we need 3/4 cup of sugar and 1/3 cup of water. Now, normally with water, you always measure it in a glass measuring cup, but our measuring cups at this campus are too big. So anything under a half cup, we have to actually measure in a dry measuring cup. Now, since it's such a small amount of water, it will not affect the recipe. If it was a large amount of water, we would have to use the glass measuring cup. Now, our instructions say that we need to bring this to 248 degrees. So I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to keep it around 11 or 12. You don't want to put it on high because you'll burn your sugar, and then you'll be starting over. Now, we know that 212 is boiling, so it's obviously going to get hotter than boiling. It's also going to turn clear. This looks pretty cloudy right now because this is a super saturated solution. Right now we have more sugar in the water than the water can physically dissolve. So if you remember from your chemistry classes, that means it's super saturated. By heating up the water is then forced to take on more sugar. So it will dissolve. Now, this is going to take a few minutes to heat up, but I did want to review real quick how to calibrate your thermometer. I calibrated this just before I started this. You put your thermometer into boiling water, and you hold the thermometer in the middle of the depth, not at the bottom of the pan or the very top, until the number holds its spot for about 10 seconds. So this one calibrated right at 212, so we do not need to make any changes to our recipe. However, had it read, let's say 210, which meant it was 2 degrees low, we would have lowered our recipe by 2 degrees to adjust for the difference, all right? So this has been calibrated. At this point, I don't need to put it in the water yet. It's not even boiling. So I can, it's a little easier to stir without the thermometer in there. So we will be back in just a minute when our mixture is boiling. Okay, our mixture is boiling here, so I put the thermometer in, and you can kind of see underneath the bubbles that the sauce, or the syrup, I'm sorry, this is a syrup, has gotten clearer. And if you remember from your syrup lab, this has a lot more sugar than it does water, so this is a heavy syrup. All right? So right now, the thermostat, and I can spin this around for the camera actually to make that a little easier for everyone to see, is at 205, and we need to go to 248. Right. And it just dropped a little bit because I pulled the thermometer out. Now, as you notice, as I was stirring, the pan kind of slid off the induction burner. You need to keep it within that circle that's drawn on top of the burner, or else it's like removing it from the heat and it'll start to cool. All right? So we will be back shortly when it's much cooler. Okay, we are back, and our syrup now is at 243, 244. So at this point, it's climbing pretty fast. And again, that only took a few minutes. We're at 246. All right, so this is going quick. Now, the thing with candy making is you need to have everything ready to go. So we are at 248. I'm going to pull this off the heat and keep stirring. Now, I'm going to here's my almonds. You needed 2 cups of almonds. Everything's pre-measured and ready to go in candy making because you have to move relatively quick. You're going to stir this until all the nuts have been coated. Until all the almonds have been coated with the syrup. Okay? Now, what's going to happen is this is going to get harder and harder to stir. So I am resorting now to a metal spoon because the rubber scraper just simply it's too soft for stirring and getting everything coated. Now you continue to stir this until it starts to look like sand, which I know you think I'm nuts, but it will happen. It might be hard. You can start to see that the syrup is already starting to turn white versus the clear, and we're starting to get some sand in here. It looks like sand. It isn't sand. You've seen everything I've put in here. But now you can see our almonds are coated with a white powder. This is very hard to stir, so you're going to be working on your muscles here. Okay. You and your partner will want to take turns stirring. So now we have all our almonds in here and they're covered in sand. All right, so now it goes back on your heat. This is the part that's kind of tedious and boring, but it'll be well worth it when it's done. So a few things to explain. You have to keep stirring. The heat is on and these almonds burn very quickly. You will know when you burn them because it will smell very bitter, which almost sounds like a taste. It will smell bad. It'll smell burnt. They will taste horribly bitter. So you want to keep stirring. And you're going to stir until all this sand disappears. So you just keep stirring and stirring, and the sand is going to turn clear again, like a clear liquid. And then you'll proceed to the next step. So we will be back when this starts to turn to a liquid again so that you can see that. Okay, we're just doing a status check here so that you can kind of see where we're at. It's been about 3 minutes. My arms are tired. You will get a workout from this so that it's handy when you have a partner. Okay, you can see that it's starting to get a little bit moist in here. It will turn clear. All of the sand has to disappear. All right, so we'll be back in a few more minutes for another status. Okay, we're here for another status check, and I'm telling you, my shoulder muscles are going to be mean beast after making this. All right, you can see that we are getting some liquid on some of the almonds, which is a really good sign that everything is going the way it needs to. We're not there yet. Obviously, you can see a lot of sand. Occasionally I hear a popping noise, and that's the almond popping because it is so incredibly hot. Now students are always tempted just to pop one of these in their mouth. These are unbelievably hot and they're dense. So it'd be like putting a really hot rock in your mouth. It's hot all the way through it. So you really need to let these cool. Alright? So it's probably been about 7 minutes since we started this process, and we'll be back in a few more minutes, and hopefully that'll be the end of it. Alright? Okay, we are back for our last status check. You can see that we have lots of liquid over all of our almonds. I'm going to stop talking for a second and see if you can actually hear any of the almonds pop. There went one. All right, those are popping. You do want to make sure you're stirring so nothing gets burned. Okay, now we don't see any white. We see the little chunks of praline mix on the almonds. That's normal. What we don't want to see is the color white, and everything here has been coated. So we're going to pull these off, and on the bottom of the pan you can kind of see how all that white sand now is a brown liquid. Okay, so we pull this off, and now we add our butter. That butter is going to melt very, very fast because it is incredibly hot. You can hear it sizzling. So you stir that all through your almonds. And again, this is not easy stirring, so be sure to rotate with your partner. Okay. Now what you're going to do is get a sheet pan, and it's lined with parchment paper. And you just kind of spread these out on here as best you can. They will break apart when they're cool, but the more you spread them out now, the easier it'll be. These are only going to need to cool about, I'd say, 10 minutes before you can actually eat them. Now, sugar syrup will dry to like rock hard, almost like a Jolly Rancher's candy, which would make cleanup a nightmare. So what I'm going to do is fill this with water, and then I'm going to sit it back there on the stove. I'm also going to put in my thermometer tip because this also has sugar syrup on it, and I will bring this to a boil, and that will boil all that sugar syrup off and make cleanup really easy. Enjoy.